Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Maestas and this is my final research project for CS102 Emerging Internet Technologies. Over the past few weeks I have been researching and gathering some answers to the question, what is the best approach to automating the hiring and onboarding process? The economic reality in the United States today is that we are, as a country, at nearly full employment. With an unemployment rate of less than 4%, the competition for employees qualified to do jobs is fierce, and companies that are able to bring those employees into their organizations faster than their competition have a significant advantage. I've worked in human resources for almost 30 years, and I can honestly say the last time I saw the market this fiercely competitive for talent was in the early 90s. As a real-world example, it is not unusual for me to come in on a Monday morning and find 3 or 4 applications that came in online over the weekend. When I call those people right away Monday morning, I'm not surprised if 1 or 2 of them have already accepted another position with another firm. First of all, I want to get a few definitions out of the way. When we talk about recruiting, we are looking at we're looking for candidates. When we talk about sourcing, we're talking about the places to find those candidates, the job boards where the ads would be placed. When we talk about hiring, we're talking about making a job offer and receiving an affirmative response from a candidate. And when we talk about onboarding, we're describing the process of starting a new employee, orienting them to their job, to their responsibilities, and to their coworkers, and then following through to make sure that they become a successful part of the organization. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to limit the subject to hiring somebody and orienting them to their new job. The recruiting and application process, and indeed the interviewing and selection process, turned out to be a whole other discussion that was a lot more involved than we would have had time for in a 10-minute presentation. So for this presentation, we're going to assume that you have found the person you wanted to hire and that you have interviewed them and they have indicated their desire to work for you. That's where hiring and onboarding comes in. Applicant tracking systems and automation of the recruiting and hiring process started to become prominent after the dot-com bubble and went through a resurgence again during the Great Recession as a way to cut costs and save money. As the world economy recovered, using tools like this made recruiters and other HR personnel much more effective because they were able to automate routine tasks. Automating these processes also has a benefit for the employee as well. Most of us have probably been through the experience of starting a new job, and at the end of the first day, we've filled out our name and address at least 10 times, signed 20 policies, gotten a handbook, watched some safety and harassment videos, and by the end of the day, have no idea what the actual job will look like. Or maybe on the other extreme, here's your name tag, there's the restroom, lunch is at 1 o'clock, ask Karen if you have any questions. The software applications that are available for companies in this particular space are almost always tied to a payroll system. The largest payroll company in the United States is ADP. ADP is a leader in offering these kinds of services, but may not always be the best choice just because they're the biggest. And they are really big. The latest information from them shows that about 1 in 5 Americans gets their paycheck from ADP. I would guess a lot of people recognize that logo from a pay stub at some point in their past, or maybe currently. They certainly have a powerful platform and is completely customizable as long as the customization you want is one of the options they have already designed out of the box. The next largest payroll provider in the United States is a company called Paychex, spelled with an X. They compete side by side with ADP and offer very similar products. Again, they can be very flexible and customizable as long as the customization that you want fits into one of the templates that Paychex already has designed for another customer. I found I had to wade through an awful lot of advertising material to get to the real meat of what is available from these types of firms and what would really work. In determining the best approach for this process, I was able to identify 4 primary areas to consider. You want to know your audience. You want to know your tech resources. Know what you already have, and set realistic and achievable goals. So let's talk about know your audience. Depending on the age and even the gender of your target audience, the people you want to hire, you may need to have several options available for them to use. Some people might be more comfortable using a Facebook type application, whereas others might be expecting a mobile optimized app. You'll need to determine if a digital signature is acceptable, or do you need to have a printed with an ink signature for your records, and how's that going to get back to your HR files? When the state of Nebraska revamped its personnel and hiring system to an online-only environment, they discovered that they needed to include an option for people to come meet with a personnel assistant in person, face-to-face. To sit with someone at a desk, to have that individual customer service representative turn off their headset and do a face-to-face resolution of problems. A study published in the Journal of Business and Psychology showed that for many web users, the content of the page that was presented is just as important, if not more important, than the actual design of the page. They also noted that many users focus more on the hyperlinks and actual text content as opposed to the overall graphics and art design. You need to also know your tech skills, or lack thereof. It's important in a project of this nature to have a frank and honest discussion with your team about your tech skills, the availability of tech support, or honestly lack thereof. A number of these types of products ship with hundreds, if not over 1,000 default templates and settings that you can use. The problem with that is determining which one is the most appropriate can become overwhelming. A report by an executive from Towers Watson, which is a well-known international HR and compensation consulting firm, discussed that when you add in the additional complexity of the mobile application, then you have current employees and managers using remote access to transfer information, and then design education programs for incoming newer employees, the complication of coordinating all these pieces can very quickly get out of control. And what started as an HR initiative to save money then becomes a costly IT problem. One example of an organization that implemented a system that was rather unexpected was published in a Canadian university journal about a library staff. They ended up using Blackboard of all things. We're all familiar with Blackboard, and if you think about what a learning management tool does, it makes a lot of sense in this type of application. It allows one person, like an instructor or hiring manager, to set expectations and tasks for another person to complete. The first person can then keep track of the completion of those tasks and the overall progress toward a common goal, which is really what onboarding a new employee is all about. The company I work at, we currently use a learning management system which is designed specifically for healthcare. It allows supervisors to record annual competency reviews for certain nursing skill tasks. We've started to consider how that may be able to be used to validate skills for new hires as they come aboard without incurring any additional costs. Setting goals. The last things that I identified as part of this kind of project is that you need to set your goalposts or your objectives and answer the questions of what are we trying to do? Are we just trying to eliminate the first day of paperwork? Are we trying to set up an orientation and onboarding process that lasts 90 days? Are we trying to do some things in between? Obviously, with any initiative of this kind, you need the buy-in of other members of your organization. It's also to remember to not to try and cover and do everything on the very first try. This is likely a situation where you will come back in 3 or 6 months, reevaluate, reassess, and redesign. A recent article from the Society for Human Resource Management pointed out 3 separate approaches that are worth considering as well. Involving, mentoring, and partnering new hires with a buddy. Developing a program of at least 3 weeks to be effective. And scheduling regular formal feedback and interaction between the new hire, their managers, and the HR staff involved to make sure that things are progressing as they should be. In conclusion, the best approach to automating the hiring and onboarding process is not one simple answer. It is the approach that works best for the organization and the people that you are working with. I hope the 4 items I identified are at least a jumping off point for you to get started on this kind of a project. Thank you for your time and attention. Here is my contact information. And here is a slide with my references.